Hello everyhopa, I am back and this was supposed to be a Halloween episode. I don't think it is anymore because I'm actually recording it on the evening of Halloween, so yeah, it's definitely not going to be out on Halloween. I'm a bit behind on my schedule, but I'm working on getting back on track with everything. And now, Midsommar. So I tried to create like a spooky ambiance and I waited until the afternoon to record this to get a bit of darkness. I don't know how that's going to play out. I think it's probably going to be like in that old Nightwish DVD, the end of Innocence, when they go to a cabin on an island and there's no electricity, and then Thomas Holopainen, he's just speaking about things, and like the sun sets slowly in the background, and eventually there is no light, and you can just hear his voice and you can sort of make out his facial features when he's speaking, but that's about it. But we will see what happens, okay? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to take a look at the movie Midsommar, and I'm going to look at it from like a Nordic cultural historian type of view. I am not a movie buff, so I'm not going to do like a review of any sorts. I'm mainly going to look at the different Nordic and Scandinavian Easter eggs that are hidden within the film, and how they might be interpreted or what their origins are, really. But I will be talking about the whole movie, so spoilers for the entirety of the movie Midsommar, if you haven't seen it. And yeah, it's not very kid friendly either, so you have been warned. And if you're still here after the warning, welcome. Let's take a look at Midsommar together. Yay! But they have definitely taken care when they created this. In the credits, this man is given special acknowledgement. His name is Ebbe Schön. He's a 91-year-old man who has spent his life doing research and educated on Nordic folklore. Ebbe is an absolute treasure, and I'm happy that they consulted him before making the film that is so heavily influenced by his field. The film was put together as a Swedish-American production, and for the extras with speaking roles they did cast Swedish and Nordic actors, which is a wise move language-wise, because you can hear when they're speaking that they do have the language down. The movie centers around Dani, a young American woman who is suffering from an extremely traumatic event. She, her boyfriend, and a group of friends are invited by their Swedish friend Pelle to join him in celebrating Midsommar at his home village of Hårga in Hälsingland, in Sweden. The village consists of a commune in which the members celebrate certain rituals that are unique to them. What the main characters don't know is that Pelle's commune is actually a cult, and that they are led straight into a deadly trap. Produced in cooperation with the Swedish Board of Tourism. Lol, no, I made that up. Sorry. And I don't think I can stress enough that Midsommar or Midsommar or Midsummer, there's actually a debate whether you should pronounce it Midsommar or Midsommar. I pronounce it Midsommar or whatever. It's actually quite a big deal in Nordic cultures, and there are many cultures around the world that have some sort of celebration of the summer solstice. Believe me when I'm telling you that Nordic cultures tend to go all out when celebrating Midsommar. And Midsommar, just like the Lucia celebration, which I do have a video about too that you can check out if you are interested, has both Christian influences and like proto-Christian pagan influences as well. It is a mixture of different things. It is referred to as Johannes night as Saint John the Baptist is celebrated on this evening, and you can be blunt about it. In Finland it's just called Johannes, for example, and Johannes night is filled with magic. It was traditionally a night where people who knew magic would be out gathering herbs, for example, gathering the dew that would be found on the grass, for example. So it is a traditional night where you could collect magical items and you could also conjure up spells. It would be celebrated, and you would have, sometimes you would have people dressed up in leaves and flowers, and you would also have like pretend weddings taking place on Midsommar as well. The iconic maypole does not appear in Nordic sources until the 17th century, but in continental Europe it was the standard since late medieval times, so it's probably imported from there. Today's midsummer celebration is very streamlined, and a lot of that has to do with the daddy of national romantic sentiments in Scandinavia, Dr. Hazelius, who staged many of these types of celebration at his park, the Skansen, in Stockholm. Also, midsummer is the time for the iconic traditional frog dance, which was sadly left out of the movie, which might be more frightening to foreigners than anything that they put into the actual film. Let me know in the comments, are you a fan of the frog dance? So, that is the holiday that the movie centers around. Now let's get into the Easter eggs. The film is set in a village called Hårga in Hälsingland, and yes, that is a real place with actual people living there, and yes, we will get back to that. But it was actually not filmed in Hälsingland at all. It's filmed on location in Budapest in Hungary. And I'm sorry, but it really shows visually that this was not filmed in Hälsingland. I'm sorry. Hälsingland as an actual region has a rather interesting history and a very specific aesthetic connected to it. There's a short saying in the Swedish language that the nobility does not cross north of the river Dalälven, which goes about here. And of course that is an exaggeration, but it shows that the landed nobility and like land-owning aristocracy would prefer to stay in the southern parts of this country, and that actually left opportunities for other social groups to become rather wealthy and become the local big boss. And Hälsingland was traditionally one of those places. And some Helsinki farmers would base their wealth on access to forest, but also linen production. And their houses are massive. We're talking 15-room farmhouses with painted decor. Their houses, which many are UNESCO classified today, remain as a testimony of their owners' wealth. This does not mean that the majority of the population in Hälsingland were wealthy. Far from it. Many actually migrated and left the country because of poverty. But it's hard to talk about Hälsingland without mentioning this very region-specific phenomenon, which makes it really hard to construct on a location abroad. And no, not all houses in Hälsingland does look like this, but it's hard to mention Hälsingland and then not incorporate that. The biggest giveaway there is the nature and the surrounding area. Even though it's absolutely stunning, it does not really look a lot like Hälsingland, because Hälsingland looks like this and this and this. It is part of the taiga and dominated by mainly conifer trees. That doesn't mean that you can't find other kinds of trees and vegetation in the area, just that they will be a bit more rare. The movie is clearly shot in a location that does not have this domination of this specific type of trees. Also, the midnight sun effect, it looks a bit weird, like a bit weird, a bit off. I think they probably did it with some kind of filter. I know, I am fun at parties. The primary reason as to why they claim that they choose Hungary to film in was that there's apparently a Swedish law that stops people from having shooting days that's longer than 8 hours, which I was totally unaware of, because I have worked on multiple film sets and like state-owned film productions, and never have I ever been told that I can go home after 8 hours. It's been like at least 16-hour work days, but the more you know. Norge, where Pelle's cult lives, is an actual place. It's in southern Hälsingland, and yes, there are actual people living there. There are quite a lot of people living there actually, so it's not like remote or anything. And Jorge has, I don't know how to say this without offending locals really, so I'm really sorry, but Jorge has like a reputation that it's like close to like dark arts reputation, and that's probably why they decided to have their film set in this village and nowhere else. This like folklore story, it's first recorded in the 1780s in Britain records, but it's probably older than that. And it's called the Jorge dance, and the story goes that there were a group of young people and they are out dancing on a Saturday night, and suddenly a stranger appears and he's playing the fiddle, and he's playing very well, and they all start dancing, like following him, and he's dancing with them up the mountain, and they're dancing and they're dancing and they're dancing, and they don't want to dance anymore, but they can't stop themselves. They just have to follow him and follow his music. And eventually, like, they are crying, they're begging him to stop, but he won't stop. They just keep dancing and dancing, and there's this young man, he takes out his knife actually, and he puts it in a doorpost and tries to hold on to pull himself out of this crazy dance. But it's just so violent that his whole arm comes right off. That's how fast this dance is, right? And eventually they reach the top of the mountain, and they keep dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing, and the sun rises and the church bells ring, but the young people are still dancing, so they can't go to church. They're just dancing and dancing and dancing, and eventually they've danced so that their whole bodies have been like worn out by the movement, and only their skulls remain. And that is the reason as to why the top of Jorge Mountain is flat, because they have been dancing all over it. And the fiddler was, of course, the devil himself. And that is the story of the Jorge dance. And this is, of course, the inspiration for the well-known scene when Danny is dancing and dancing with the girls until they drop dead one by one, and Danny becomes the May Queen. Now, this motif is very common in Nordic folklore and is referred to as the Jorge dance, even if the stories take place on other locations. And usually this is a folklore story that comes with a warning, like the kids have been dancing on a graveyard and this is the punishment. And the melody has various lyrics and it's super well known, and even Benny from ABBA has recorded it. I'll link the song down below. The fiddler is usually considered to be either the devil or the Nøk, and the Nøk is this other folklore creature that I've been talking about in another video. This motif is, however, also featured in the continent. For example, the piper in Hamelin comes to mind. It's not a unique motif at all. We just call it the Jorge dance in Scandinavia. I'm going to drink my little saffron tea now. And they're starting to pump out the Christmas flavors actually. So, skål! And now we're getting into another iconic scene, the cliff scene. We learn from this scene that the villagers count the ages of man according to the number 18 and specifically the number 9. That's how I want to divide it into the number 9s. When you're 18 to 36, that is the summer of your life, and 36 to 54 is your fall years, and then 54 to 72, that is your winter year. And when you reach the age of 72, you do a ritual where you throw yourself off this cliff in a very dramatic fashion, and then there is a barbecue. Okay, and this is also an Easter egg actually, and it's quite cool because 18, you can divide that by number 9, and 9 is a lucky number in Scandinavian folklore. There are 3 main magical numbers. The first is number 3, the second one is number 7, and the third one is number 9. And I mean, 9 is extra lucky because it's 3 times 3. Basically, that's number 9. And you can find, for example, on the traditional midsummer bouquet, you will pick either 9 or 7 flowers. There are 9 months of pregnancy, for example, when a baby is expected. But you can also go further back, and you can see that the number 9, there are 9 Valkyries. In Nordic mythology, Odin was hung from a tree for 9 days to regain his wisdom. So that is like a subtle little touch of incorporating the magical numbers into the whole life cycle of the Hårga village. Now, the jump to one's death here is commonly referred to as an ättestupa, which means fall of a house or fall of your line. The concept of the ättestupa has a status as something that aging Vikings would do if they could not die in battle, which would help them to meet Odin in Valhalla and not end up in Hel. It is a road to an honorable death. Plenty of places in the Nordic countries have been pointed out as places of ättestupa. Now, not to be a total buzzkill, but there is very little evidence that this was actually a Viking Age thing. The first record of ättestupa is from an Icelandic piece of literature called Gautorek's Saga, which takes place in, you guessed it, Sweden. The same as this film, actually. And in that saga, there is a character that jumps to his death in order to have a fast pass and fast access to Odin, basically. This story is not recorded in writing until the 13th century, and then in Iceland. And now we have to remember that Iceland was a bit quicker in adapting Christianity than other Nordic countries, and that is sort of reflected a bit in the literature. It's a bit of, oh, look how these weird heathens act. We are nothing like that. Ha 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 ha. And this story was translated in the 17th century, and it became super popular in the 18th and 19th centuries, and suddenly had all of these different places pointed out as places of ättestupa. But it has very little to do probably with actual reality. It could also be a dig at Swedish elderly care, because that A fun detail about the film is the murals depicted throughout the buildings. This is where we can see that they had a look at the Hälsingland aesthetic and tried to emulate it. The set designer did research trips to both actual Hälsingland and collections of famous painters outside of the province. The Hälsingland paintings are part of that wealth that the regional farmers displayed. Painted walls and furniture were signs of luxury and opulence. These paint jobs were done during the 18th and 19th centuries, both by local and traveling painters. Specifically, there are a few regions that tended to be poorer, that you would have traveling painters coming from, and they would actually be encouraged by the state to adapt different crafts because their farming was not enough to sustain them. And a lot of them became painters actually, and they would travel, and the wealthy Hälsinge peasants would be really good customers actually. And this is totally unrelated, but if I don't mention this, there will be someone mentioning that, oh, you did show an artist from this region in a video about this region, because yeah, you can tell them apart because they are very different aesthetically. Yes, I am aware. I think the set designers have been looking at a painter called Gustav Reuter, an 18th century artist and soldier who was based and active in Hälsingland. This specific room has a decor done by Reuter in 1748 and 1763 respectively. He also had a small-scale local painting school. And look, I know what you're going to think. Yes, it is contemporary with this and this and this. It is a rather naive style, which makes it a bit charming, I think. Later, during the course of the 18th century, we start to see peasant painters who were actually classically trained at the Royal Academy of Arts. But most of the early production looks like this in this rather naive, charming style. The paintings of Midsommar do in some way spoil the film, as they show the key scenes from the film before they actually take place within the movie. And just to be clear, the Helsinki paintings such as this tend to show religious motifs and like general party scenes or landscapes or city motifs and things like that. They do not, as in the movie, tend to show gore and violence and adult activities. Gustav Reuter did not paint that, or I don't know what he painted in private, but his collection is not really that at museums anyway. In the film's climax, there's a heavy focus on a gutted bear in which skin Christian gets dressed in. And the bear as such has a high status in Nordic culture. It was both feared but also revered and respected. And in Sami mythology, the bear is actually a holy animal. And the thing with bears in Scandinavia is that you're not really allowed to call it its actual name. You can't say bear. You have to use like a nickname for it. So you say like big father or cute father or sweet father or sweet paw as well. You can use those words, because if you use its actual name, it will appear and it might attack you, so you want to stay away from it. There's also this motif of the man bear, because some bears were actually believed to be humans transformed into bears by either themselves, because they were conjurers, or by some magic wielding enemy of them that transformed them into a bear. The magic of the Midsommar film. I don't know how to talk about this without getting banned from YouTube, but I'll give it a try. The character Maya, she is implied to have mixed some of her bodily fluids, monthly bodily fluids, let's put it that way, and some of her body hair with the food that she has later fed to Christian. And yeah, that is nothing that the filmmakers made up on the fly. That is actual Nordic love magic right there. It is present in older records and sometimes even court records, because magic was illegal up until the end of the 18th century. I have never read Harry Potter, but I suppose that that's not really part of the curriculum at Hogwarts. Is there a Nordic wizarding school? Is there one? I don't know. And if there is one, please tell me if it's closed down, because if it is closed down, this might be the issue. Yeah, this might be why. Right here. This type of thing. That was a few of the Nordic folklore elements featured in the hit film Midsommar. I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was a bit different from my usual content, but I wanted to try it out. I had a really fun time doing this, so I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with me to the end of this video. It really means a lot to me that you did. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing or leaving a like or sharing the video. And otherwise, please take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you soon again.